Coming up tonight, the rest of the day's story. Some microfinance companies in the country are calling for support from government to help serve the micro business community. This, according to them, will enhance the president's agenda of improving financial inclusion. Executive Secretary of the Ghana Association of Microfinance Companies, Joseph Donko, has, however, indicated the association is in talks with the central bank to arrive at a mutual agreement.
There are about 353 members of the Ghana Association of Microfinance Companies nationwide, with majority 7 micro, small and medium enterprises that are the unbanked community. The call for support for the sector follows government's decision to issue a bond to help local banks in the country meet their liquidity challenges. Some have argued that the sector has been reserved for private entrepreneurs, unlike the commercial banks, where the central bank offers emergency liquidity support in times of trouble. Executive Secretary of the Association, Joseph Donko, spoke after addressing members of the association on an information session on mergers and acquisition.
In our industry, we still look at our institutions. Some of them have low capital base. Others are also in the middle in there. And looking at where they are now, the support of the businesses will be something that we will welcome. We are in talks with Bank of Ghana, and we believe that together we will look at the situation of the institutions and how best they can receive the necessary support to continue with their business. Remember that we deal with the low-income sector of the economy, and the members that we serve are so important that we will need to ensure that our businesses stay on to provide the needed services and also to deepen the financial inclusion agenda of the country.
Financial consultant Senor Ernest Jandu supports the call but thinks the owners of the microfinance companies can find opportunities to grow by themselves since it's a private venture.
I have heard arguments that if you do it for the banks, do it for us also. I do not know whether it is a fair comparison to make. In my view, the issue about government supporting microfinance sector is not something that government does not do, but government does more through other forms of technical assistance. So, for example, we had a program called RAFIP, where many institutions were trained. They were supported to develop manuals and those kind of documents. MISIP, as we call it now, sponsored by AFD, is supporting microfinance companies largely through technical assistance. The understanding is that when these institutions become stronger, the business models are sound, projections are good, reliable, they can have bankable and get people to invest in them, get institutions to invest in them. Can government play a role? Yes, government can play a role if government chooses to. If you take Maslock, people have argued several times that Maslock by design should actually be giving loans to microfinance for on-lending. But Maslock does direct lending. It's more like a competitor.
The program is aimed at helping members of the association identify areas to take advantage in the industry.
Oil exploration giant Tallow says it's putting in place measures to deal with the effects of unstable crude oil prices on its operations. According to the managing director of Tallow Ghana, Kweku Awotwe, long-term investments are underway to manage the situation going forward. He spoke to Joy Business at the latest edition of the Festival of Ideas organized here in Accra. Bismarck Awusa has more.
World market prices of crude oil over the years have had a rippling effect on the country's oil exploration. It is against this backdrop that Managing Director of Giant Oil Exploration firm Tallow Ghana, Kweku Awotwe, says his outfit is putting measures in place to forestall any negative impact on its exploration. Speaking on the sidelines of this year's edition of Festival of Ideas organized in Accra, Mr. Awotwe said management is working hard to safeguard its activities in the oil sector.
I think the whole idea is to share ideas and inspire us to think about how we can do more and achieve more and create more. You know, at this point in Tallow's phase of growth. It's very much about positioning for the long term. So, you want to be ready whether prices go up or prices go down. You want to think long term. How do you stay competitive?
Touted as Ghana's flagship business conference, the event brought together high-profile personalities to share ideas on how to leverage innovation and best practices to improve local standard of living. Meanwhile, founder of International Central Gospel Church, ICGC, Dr. Mensa Otabo, has made a renewed call on government to pay special attention to the private sector to ensure growth in the financial space.
But the greatest way to break the siege is to empower the lepers to go out to the Syrian camp. That you have to empower individuals. Now, empowering individuals is risky, but that is what has made the difference. Even a totalitarian nation like China has broken the siege. The future of our growth will not be in our government or even our state institutions. It is going to be private people who create the opportunity and make it possible for others to be pulled along.
The 2018 edition of Festival of Ideas was on the theme leveraging strategy, technology and best practices. Bismarck Ausa, Joy Business.
You're watching Business Live. We've got more coming up after this break.
Welcome back, and you're still watching Business Live, and this is our big story for today. And imagine buying a box of tomato for 60 cedis and selling it for 500 cedis. Well, that is the tale of the farmer and the market woman. Here's a report on how some traders are taking advantage of lack of ready markets to cheat farmers, leaving them in abject poverty.
Huago Tete Stephen entered into farming after dropping out of school at the senior high level due to financial difficulties. At age 25, he cultivates about 4 acres of tomato farm at Koliado in the Greater Accra region. Despite working hard over the years, he tells me his toil is yet to change his standard of living. Inconsistent rain patterns has affected his crops, resulting in low yields.
We are expecting like 50 bushels of tomatoes to come out of the 5 hectares of land. But as you are seeing there, it's only 2 bushels of tomatoes that we have, so it's no good at all.
Another farmer, Ebenezer, described farming as waste of time. According to him, after months of sweat on the farm, the end result is heartbreaking.
In we are down the farmers, we suffer a lot, and even we lose in farming because even fertilizer, they are selling fertilizer almost 66.
Compounding the situation, they said market women were milking them. This box of tomato, for instance, was sold for 60 cedis.
Because we agree. It agree no contain so muba no mutawe 60 Ghana.
This is agric, and the market women buy a basket for 60 Ghana. The box of rhino is 30 Ghana.
Rhino no, omuta no 30 Ghana. 30 Ghana.
And the box of local tomato is bought at 50 Ghana.
Adaka kasiya no, no muta no, onusu 50 Ghana.
Those company ni adanse.
There's no factory here in Adan. If we had a factory, things would be much better.
The traders, on the other hand, blame their low pricing on lack of market.
This is the season for tomatoes, but market is bad. I bought this basket for 60 cedis. Transportation from the farm is 10 cedis. Loading is 2 cedis, and transportation to Accra is also 10 cedis.
Our checks revealed a box of tomatoes would have cost Madame Bruce Bio a total of 72 cedis on a box to the Malamata market where she retails it. Based on this calculation, I decided to check on the price of tomato at the Malamata market.
We are currently at the Malamata market to find out how these retailers are actually selling the tomato on the market, and I have with me Auntie Julie to tell me how much she's selling her tomatoes.
Adakano enne yetowei 500 Ghana.
I bought a box of agric tomato today for 500 cedis and the rhino for 300 cedis. So I also sell the smallest bowl of the rhino for 5 cedis and the agric for 7 cedis. The big container of rhino sells for 20 cedis while the agric is going for 25 cedis.
So I've been joined by the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Kariwe, to discuss this very particular topic. Thanks so much for your time, but are you shocked by this report?
Certainly, I'm shocked, but not surprised.
Why do you say that?
Well, this is the fate of farmers, and it is a recurrent thing that occurs to farmers or happens to farmers because whenever there's a glut, you know, they are left to fend for themselves, you know. When they produce, they have to look for their own market. And because they are producers, they are unable to, at the same time, be transporters so that they can carry their produce to where the market is. So it then gives room for these intermediaries, the market queens, to intervene at the farm gate and pick it very cheap.
I'm sure you agree with me that this is seasonal. Why have you waited for this as an association? What have you done in this regard to be able to solve situations like this?
Well, I think that the records show that this has been talked about over the years. Ghana was better off in tomato production years back than today. As you know, the records show that we now import a lot of tomatoes from neighboring countries, including Burkina Faso.
That's about 50 to 70,000 metric tons of tomatoes,
which costs about $100 million only for tomatoes that we import into this country. It's a reflection of our policy failure. You know, we have failed to process tomatoes in this country. And we also know that tomatoes is highly perishable. And the Portable Tomato Factory collapsed. Attempts to revive it did not work. So certainly, we were simply waiting for this time to come. So it is not surprising.
I was asking earlier, what have you done to be able to solve this situation? I'm sure policy-wise, have you been able to do anything to put government in check to be able to resolve these issues?
Well, we are now operating a free market system. Government thinks that their intervention in business should be limited, and that has been the result of what we are having today. So we have spoken about it. We have urged government about it. Government continues to come out with policies that allow cheaper imports into this country, including tomatoes, you know, at the detriment of the local producers. So it's a policy issue, you know, it's a policy issue.
So do you think that we should be considering a price control regime? We go back so that elsewhere is done from the farm to the market, the price is controlled. Should we be looking at that?
You know, as a country, it appears we are behaving like more Catholics than the Pope himself. We have become so much liberalized. We believe in free market more than even the architects of the free market. You are aware that today U.S. is protecting their markets through tariffs and all means to protect their market. But it is at that point that we are rather now opening our markets wider and wider for the rest of the world to come in. You know, if you look at the architects of globalization and who have benefited from it, you know, more than us, they are saying that it is no good. There's a limit to globalization. And today, China, which had blocked its market for many years, today is now at the forefront of advocating for free market. And that is why they are also fighting that, no? tariffs should not be placed on their exports. So why is it that we are not learning all these lessons to take steps to protect our market and our producers?
I'm sure government will argue that, well, the 1D1F is supposed to solve situations like these, but in the short term, what do you think can be done to be able to salvage the situation so that it makes farming attractive? Because we are calling for more youth to enter into farming, and there's the situation on the ground.
Well, what I've seen is that in the short term, there's no solution. Because if we take tomatoes, for instance, if your tomatoes begins to ripe, it takes 2 weeks. You know, once the market is not good within 2 weeks, you would have exhausted everything, and then you certainly lose out. So within the 2 weeks, I don't think that government can be able to do anything to bring up the price of tomatoes. So there's no short-term solution. We have to endure the pain of planning into the future. You know, making sure that next year, next 2 years, next 5 years, we are not here still talking about what we are talking about today, because about a decade ago, these things were being talked about. 2 decades ago, these things were being talked about, and today we are still talking about them. So the long-term solution is what we should be looking at. But I don't see any short-term solution.
Quite sad, but we pray that something happens soon. We've been speaking to the General Secretary of the Ghana Agricultural Workers Union, Edward Carrier, on this very development. Moving on to our interview of the day, and Managing Director of Seed Funds, Savings and Loans, Albert Imegwa, says banks in the country should have taken advantage of the stock market to raise the necessary funds to recapitalize and meet the Bank of Ghana's 400 million Ghana cedis capital requirements. He also indicated that the wave of bank consolidation in a bid to meet the minimum capital requirement could bring about cost reduction.
I disagree on the issue of if you can't meet it, you come down. But I support fully the raising of the minimum share capital to 400 million.
Okay.
I've seen it in 2 different economies. I was a player in Nigeria when Nigeria moved from 5 billion naira to 25 billion naira between 2003 middle to 2004 middle to 2005 December, 18 months. And then Nigeria had about 91 banks.
Wow.
Out of the 91 banks, Nigeria was a major oil producer. We couldn't play in the oil industry because if a company comes to say, I want $12 million naira to buy, $12 million to buy a fairly used upland oil rig, the oil industry could not raise it.
Whoa.
It was small. But once this consolidation came, we took it as a challenge, and many Nigerian banks went to the market to get money. In so doing, we achieved 2 things. We deepened the capital market because at the resulting end, we now ended up with Nigerian 25 banks. All 25 banks, apart from NIB, then were all put in the stock exchange.
Okay.
So it deepened the stock exchange.
Very good.
Because many Nigerians were now forced to buy shares in the banks. Then, instead of having 91 corporate boardrooms, 91 MDs, 91 chairmen, you can imagine the amount of money used in servicing them.
It's true.
We came down to 25 banks. And then these 25 banks became stronger.
Well, for those who watched tonight's program who are going to the market on Saturday, I guess that they will be thinking twice when they buy tomatoes from the market.
It's a very sad development.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Well, that'll be it for tonight's show. Thanks for watching. My name is Daryl Kwao.
And my name is Sandra Isanamapen. Have a great weekend.
Great. And there's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. Be sure to visit the site over the weekend. Thanks for watching.
Bye.